Hi, I'm Mario, and today we're working on one phase of the lithium battery bank install for my Chevy Colorado. And specifically what we're working on today is connecting the DC to DC charger to the alternator and making sure that it's grounded out, trying to get the wiring set up for that. So one thing to remember about these videos is this is not a tutorial on how to do the install. Rather, this is just a demonstration on what I did to my truck. So I'm not telling you how to work on things, how to wire stuff up. So the topics I like to cover in this tutorial are the basic connections of the DC to DC charger to the Chevy Colorado. So I'm going to have to find a spot to penetrate from the engine compartment to the inside of the truck, because that's where the battery bank is going to reside, along with the controller, the DC to DC charge controller. And so once we find that penetration spot, then we're going to have to breach it and then run a connection to the alternator. So the first thing we need to do is go after the battery. So I'm going to go after it using a 13mm socket and remove that nut. Just going to come at it right here. All right, with that out of the way, I'm going to go after the mass air sensor connector. So I'll start by moving that release out of the way. Let's see if I can do it with one hand. So the release just goes up. Once that's up, then I should be able to just, let's see, push that down. And there it is. So that was that. The next thing will be this hose clamp here. And then there are two 10mm looks like nuts there. They might be bolts. Okay, now I'm not too worried about dust getting in here. I'm in a really clean environment, so now I'm going to go after this hose clamp right here. Let's see, it looks like a 8mm. All right, that's ready. The next thing that should be holding us back are these two 10mm bolts. So this should pull right out. I did forget one thing, and that is part of the harness for the mass airflow sensor plug. It has a little nut clip, so I'm going to grab my little screwdriver and pry that off right here. There's not enough room, so I'm going to go ahead and take the cover off of the airbox. So the fasteners stay in the top cover, and it just hinges in the back here, little tabs. And let's see, yeah, Looks like I got the clearance I need, hopefully. All right, that was the ticket. And that's what it looks like inside. And there is the alternator here. I'm going to drill a pilot using a 7/64 drill bit. I think I can fit in there. There's one spot here. So it's not a good idea to try to drill here. I don't know what's going to happen with all the walking and whatnot. The objective here is to put a self-tapping screw to support the cable that I'm going to run the copper wire. Okay, that didn't go too bad. I think the trick was that I just went slow. So what I'm going to use is this number 10 self-tapping screw here. And the drill bit I used was a little bit smaller than the pilot for this self-tapping screw. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't get a couple threads caught on there. Now I'm going to go ahead and back it out. Whoops. Gotta love good tools. The reason why I backed it out is I want to hit it with some spray paint. Got some enamel here. Excuse me, GoPro. Little dabble do you. Now that I got that paint on there, I'm just going to go ahead and put this in a couple threads, and that's it. That's going to be my support for the wire. So I got my stubby ratchet and a 13 millimeter, and I'm going to go after the terminal, the positive terminal on the alternator. So that's where all the juice gets kicked out. So I removed the nut from the alternator terminal, but I went ahead and I left the terminal there, and now I'm going to kind of dry fit the new ring terminal onto the alternator. The wire I'm going to use is a marine grade copper wire. So what happens with this is it's actually tinned to help prevent from corrosions and whatnot. So this should be the best wire I can get, and I'm using 4 gauge. And then the ring terminal that I'm going to use is this 4 gauge ring terminal, and the stud size is 5/16. There are tabs so you can place the terminal in certain angles, and I think I got the right one. I think that's the position I'm looking for. Let's see. I think that's the position I'm looking for. First thing I'm going to do is cut a length of this heat shrink tube, and then slide it over the wire there. Then I need to go ahead and get a nice straight cut here. And then I'm going to go ahead and strip out a section. Go ahead and measure that. So I'm not putting any pressure on the cutters. This isn't really what you're supposed to use to strip. There, I felt it just went through. All right, so it's got a little bit of a hang up right there, but I'm not even going to put any, I don't want to cut any of those, so I'm just, there we go. So I'm going to use this crimper that I bought at Harbor Freight. It's a hydraulic crimper. There are other options that you can look into. Now, I don't have electricity right here, so I'm going to go ahead and just use my heat gun on there, and then I'll be all set. Okay, so I got that heat shrink wrapped on there. And like I said, I crimped it at a funny angle, but I'm okay with it. Looks good. And then I did the other end also, because this is going to sit inside my truck for a couple days anyway until I get it terminated. All right, well, the objective now is to get this cable run up inside the engine compartment, the engine bay. So I'm going to find myself a good lead here, and then I think I'm going to go up. Okay, so I got my nut here that I'm going to go ahead and fasten the, get this thing so I got it oriented correctly. And then I'm just gonna put it over that terminal and wire it up. All right, so it's loosely fit on there right now. And now I'll just go ahead and torque it down. So I went ahead, the rubber boot doesn't fit perfectly back on because it's designed for one terminal feed, but you know, one cable, but I think it's going to work. Now I'm just going to kind of try to dress it in a little bit. All right, well, I got the cable halfway run that direction, and this is where we're at now. Got the cable dressed in here. I'm using a wire loom product, and I'm using zip ties. So like for instance here, I put one zip tie around the wire loom and cable, a second zip ties around the screw. So kind of ghetto, but I can't afford a trip to the store right now. I need to penetrate the floor pan, and it seems like there's a grommet right here. Not a grommet, but let's see if you can see that better. There we go. So anyway, right here, that's a little plastic plug for the floor pan. And I think I'm going to drill through there enough for 2 wires, maybe 3. Anyway, 2 4-gauge wires at the minimum through there. And the path I chose is to go directly over this forward cab mount. So the frame mount here mounts to the cab. This is the forward one. And there's an electrical wire that runs back through here, and I think this is part of the ABS system, or this seems like some sort of vacuum line, or I'm not quite sure. Could possibly be brakes, but that should be on the other side. But at any rate, there's existing wires running through here, and some areas where it's fastened to the frame, so that seemed like a good option. So not exactly the correct job to drill through this plug here, but I got a 7/8 Forstner bit, and let's see if it can cut through. I think it's centered pretty good. And this project's not going to be completed today. And what I need to do is just get this positive cable that's currently going to be hot. It's connected to the alternator. So what I need to do is get it secured so that it doesn't move around. Just went ahead and zip tied it to these metric size 10 bolts here, and then I'll just put another zip tie here and just finish dressing it up along the frame so it's not really going to move around. And then of course I have the end is covered up. So this is where the battery bank is actually going to reside, right in this area right here. And so I have the positive going from the alternator here, but now I'm going to need some sort of ground, and I'm going to ground it to chassis. So here's my hole, which is right about here. I'm thinking it would be really nice to have it right here, but I'm looking at where other holes, existing holes for other features are. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to position it right here. So that's going to be for my ground, and for that I'm going to run a 2-gauge wire. I bought this from Harbor Freight, and I cut the wire, and it's actually copper. It's not a copper covered tin, so it's copper through and through, and it's nice and flexible. So I'm going to go ahead and use it here, and that'll just be a short run. It'll just come from here and down and through that hole right there. Yeah, so this is the cable, and like I said, it's already pre-assembled, but I cut this end off. But I'm gonna go ahead and connect this into the frame here. So now I just need to prep the frame. And just kind of smooth it out. Let's just try it on for size. Yeah. If I hit the center, it'll be good. I don't want to take too much off. Got a 1/8 drill bit, number 14 self-tapping. I think this is 3/4 inch. Anyway, self-tapping screw here. Then the point is that this drill bit is smaller than the shank on this screw. I don't want to remove too much material. I want the screw to work, but I don't want it to walk. So now I'm going to go after it with some electrolytic grease. I'll put some on the screw itself and get some on the back side of the ring terminal as well. I'm thinking I'm going to go for it. Alright, I'm okay with that. I probably should hit this with primer or something. but I got my, just gonna hit it with the enamel. Okay, so I think I successfully accomplished what I set out to do, and that is I got the positive cable and the negative right here and ready to go. But I just wanted to thank you guys for, you know, tuning in. Hopefully this helps you guys out, and or at least, you know, you can see what the heck I'm doing here. There's still a lot to go on with this project. I'm really excited about it, and I hope I can pull it off, to be honest. All right, till next time. Thanks, guys.